Jesus asks the people at the time, why did you go out to see John the Baptist? Very simple question. Why did you go out to see John the Baptist? I can ask you, why did you come to church this morning? I would hope it's the same answer. Yours is a more perfect answer. I want more out of my life. I think there's a deeper truth out there. I think this man, John the Baptist, in the first instance, preaches the word of the Lord. He calls us to accountability. He calls us to responsibility. He calls us to self-mastery. He calls us to forgiveness. He calls us to community. A lot of those things you can say about right now. Why'd you come to Mass today? My mom dragged me to Mass. Okay, you made it. While you're here in the short time that we're gathered, take some of this in. If the season is hectic for you, if you're caught up in the commercialism. Yesterday out in front of Benedict Estrada's, Santa Claus was out. I was so tempted just to be a curmudgeon or Grinch. Hey, Santa Claus is a minor leaguer. Jesus Christ is the majors. He's the all-star. So that's why you come to Mass. It's good to have that forethought, premeditation. Do I go because I had to? Fair enough. There's a better answer, though. I want more out of my life. I want deeper meaning. I want more connectedness. You know, outside of church, besides maybe a stadium, I don't know, maybe a rock concert, but those are much, much lesser ways. This is the best, in some cases, we feel. We're in a community. We're all orientated towards the same goal, love of God, love of neighbor. You got the music. You know, and when you pray the words, let me invite you, please. Not just out of the mouth. Bring them into the heart. You know, this is unfortunate, but when we have the children's Mass for the school, the teachers make them open up the books. But you can see they fake the singing. Look, you're not. I'm looking right at you. You're faking it. When you pronounce syllables, there's a clear denunciation or pronunciation or both. So that's the first point. That's not even the first point. That was an introduction. We forgot to light the candles, and it leads to my first point. There's only 3 points. Joy, no joy, how to get joy. Before Mass, the 5 altar boys, the deacon, we were just yucking up in a sacristy. Having some good, holy, Advent joy. This represents, in the midst of the Advent season, joy. How's your joy doing? Listen, we don't, because of the public service, if you have to plow, I'm sorry. And many people have to shovel. Public service in this town, as far as I'm concerned, do a very nice job. Downtown looks beautiful on Brink Street. And if you don't like the snow, you got some means, move. Because this is the Midwest. It snows. That's what we get. My humble point is, it's a great time, hopefully, to know Jesus is the reason for the season. Santa Claus is fine. Jesus is the reason. And the same way young kids love Santa, and they want to open up those gifts, because they think something, well, they know something is going to be underneath those wrappings that will hopefully give them they don't know the difference between lasting joy and short-term joy like hopefully we do, but their anticipation is fun to watch. I want you to have, I want to have the same anticipation that God has a present for me, that God has further joy for me. That life, whether I feel better or not, God gives me the grace to understand a little more deeply how much He loves me. He motivates me to love others more, to listen to others more. Heaven knows, you know I struggle with that. And give me these gifts, enunciate them. Now, we're singing at home. We all got our own songs. We're running through the house and the kitchen at the same time. The songs cross over. Father Simon's got a new song. Maybe you've heard a version of it. Father Simon's song is, I'm the most wonderful guy in the world. When Cedar said, you can't do that. He goes, oh no, I just got back from Africa. I was in Nigeria. My sister got married. I saw my mother. He's the happiest guy you've ever met. Father Simon's right now the happiest guy you ever met. He's just filled with joy. Tell him to change the words though. I think he mispronunciated the pronoun. But it's joy. And communion is Jesus juice. Jesus juice. That's what communion is. It ain't eggnog. It's not wine. It's consecrated wine, which is the blood of Christ. It's the body of Christ. It's the source of our joy. Now, not everyone's joyful. You know that. This time of year, for some people, lost relatives this time of year. People have been unemployed this time of year. There were homeless this time of year. There were marital problems. There were relational problems. There were problems with children in school, with their parents and their teachers. A lot of John the Baptist in today's gospel, he's in prison. Now, if you're John the Baptist and you go to prison, if you know the way John lived, prison would be an upgrade. Thank you. Someone got that. The guy was eating a locust. Now at least he gets 3 hots in a cot. He gets bologna, right? They give him bologna sandwiches. He got a bed. He probably slept on a rock. So anyway, that wasn't that funny. So John tells his disciples, go ask Jesus if you are the one. So some say, was John caught in the crucible of faith, and did he doubt? Did he doubt? When the pressure got going, did he doubt? And everybody from the beginning of the first person to interpret this says, no, that is not what happened. It said that, to my disciples, go to Jesus and ask him, are you the one, or is another one to come? That was not an example of John doubting. Actually, that was what's not happening in the United States today with all our disunity. What's not happening? That was a transfer of power. Seriously. That was a transfer of power. John had his own disciples. He had his own followers. He was go to Jesus and ask him. So you could know for yourself the works of the Lord. But as I mentioned, what if John did doubt? I don't think he did. Everything you read in terms of biblical interpretation, scripture scholars, he did not doubt. But if he did, would he be any less a Christian? Think about this. If John doubted, if he was in prison, and maybe he liked his locusts and honey, maybe he was into that kind of stuff, maybe he was a tree hugger, I don't know. Maybe when people weren't watching, he had granola. Not that there's anything wrong with granola. But he was caught by this sorrow, this absence of faith, this temptation to an absence of faith. My friends, it wouldn't have not made him any less a Christian. Pope Benedict, in my life, more than anybody, when he was the cardinal, doubt is not the absence of faith. What's the absence of faith? Can anyone yell it out? Apathy. Thank you. It's not caring. Whenever I get into I shouldn't say a beef. I have problems with the health club once in a while because I'm undercover, and I'll bait someone into a conversation. They don't know who I am. And then I ask them about church, and they're a little curious at first, and they get very angry. They're like, why don't you go? You got 3 kids. What's the matter with you? You were just some nice guy I talked to on the weightlifting floor. Now you're like yelling at me. Hey, calm down. And then people get very angry. I tell Monsignor, he goes, better they get angry. Better you talk to a relative who gets angry than just doesn't care. Anger is not, again, so doubt is not the opposite of faith. If you went through one of those patches, if you're in one of those passages, reach out. So there's those that are joyful, grounded in Jesus. He's the reason for the season. He's our faith. There's those who are not joyful. Why are they not joyful? I got a few professional opinions on why some people aren't joyful. First and foremost, the heartbreak. Who of us is going to judge another person who went through a heartbreak? I lost my mom, I lost my father, lost my wife, lost my child. That's no one's going to. Who of us is going to stand in judgment of that person? Number 2, and I don't have percentages for these. Number 2, this is my experience running through your town, pretty much visible in public most of the time. A lot of intellectually lazy people. This is some deep stuff here, man, woman, excuse my French. This is some deep stuff. Faith might be simple, ultimately, but it requires some thinking. Why aren't you in some other church? Why did you come to the Catholic Church today? Because there's competition, unfortunately. There's a consumer mentality in Christianity. I didn't like the music. The priest is overbearing. Whatever it may be. There's a consumer mentality. Do you know why I came to a Catholic church today instead of some other church? One simple word. Well, it's a couple words. It's true. Jesus started a church. He gave us his body and his blood. So intellectually lazy, and some are just lazy. Come on. Some are just lazy people. They just are. They don't want much out of life. They put nothing into religion. My mother always said when a young person says, I got nothing out of it, you know the best answer. What did you put in? And why did you come to Mass? I mean, we come for the body and blood, granted. But don't we first and foremost come here to thank God? To bend the knees symbolically, to bend our hearts in humility to an almighty creator who gave us this? Number 3, you're pleasure seekers. You're hedonists. Come on, don't be fooled by these people. They might lob an argument at you during Christmas. They're pleasure seekers who don't want discipline. Don't tell me what to do. I especially want to tell you what to do. And then some of these people at the health club, after they find out who I am and if they let me go a little further, they'll say things like, hey man, back off. Feels like you're brainwashing me. To which I respond immediately, you could use a good brainwash. Because I don't know what they're telling you outside, but you know this. Come on, you're at Mass this morning. We're here to celebrate with joy. There's a contradictory message outside these doors. There's a hostile and at times contradictory message outside these doors. We come to celebrate. We got to stay together more than ever. Okay, so how do we find the joy? Okay, if the doubt, the off-ramp led to a hardening of heart, an intellectual laziness, the sensualist or the hedonist, or the one whose heart is broken, first and foremost, you got to ask for it. You got to ask. God said knock. God said seek. I don't know why this is still funny, but the kid wants to learn Spanish, so he takes a Spanish book and he puts it under his pillow. And he figures he's going to get it by osmosis. No, this takes some work. We had a how many years? 500-year fight with the Lutherans. I don't know if you know this, but the main body of Lutherans and the Catholics, the Roman Catholics, have a joint declaration on faith. We cast them out into the four corners. They cast us out. We finally got together and realized, everybody just calm down. We actually believe in matters of faith the same things. You see, we fought over the idea of works. They said that the Catholic says you have to work your way into heaven. Well, the answer is no, you don't. But faith by itself, yes, it's a gift, but you got to accept it. It's a kind of work. It's an intellectual labor. So you got to want this. And here's my last point of this. It's still going to be more, too bad. But the last point on how to get joy. Maybe you got to ask someone, Jesus joy, faith joy, how to look for it. Notice in today's gospel, this is great. Jesus says this. Jesus says, and blessed is the one who takes no offense in me. What does that mean? The Jews expected a guy to come with a million soldiers. The Jews expect Jesus just to bust in from heaven, God the Son, and just level the Romans. He came through a woman. He was born in a stable. He was a humble man like everybody else. He had the profession as a carpenter. So blessed is the one. That's my interpretation. Hey, I didn't come the way you thought I'd come, but you still believed. Maybe we got to look for the Jesus joy in places that you wouldn't think to look. Give you an example. There are people at Mass right now, don't look around. They buried their sons. They've lost their spouses. They live with cancer, and they still worship. Just because your heart is broken doesn't mean you have to fall away. Just because your heart is crushed by some unfortunate tragedy doesn't mean you have to doubt and go off. If you do, you do. But people, I would start with them. I would start with the soup kitchen. I would start with the Milwaukee Children's Burn Unit. I would start with our trip to Haiti, which I'm going to promote after Mass. You know, the biggest problem with taking people to Haiti is when they see all the poverty, they freak out. Because I'll never watch the news again. What I'm watching now is Aleppo. And I'm praying for it all the time. If you've seen images of what's going on in a city which once held 2 million people, it's all rubble. Looks a lot like Haiti in some spots. Obviously much more dangerous there with terrorism and the Civil War. But when people come to Haiti, their first response, we try to prepare them. John does a good job in trying to prepare them. Jeff is helping, trying to prepare them. Like, this is too much. This is too much, Miles. This is too much. So we had a meeting the other day. Someone says, how am I going to deal with this? Be patient. Wait till you get to the school. Wait till you see, in the midst of the most poverty-stricken country in the Western Hemisphere, an oasis of opportunity, an oasis of hard workers, an oasis of joy with young people 7th to 13th grade who literally have nothing. And then when I get into these fights, I love this stuff. I mean, I'm always yakking outside this church. You should say a prayer for me. Lucky that stuff doesn't slide into these pulpit homilies, because I have an opinion on everything. So when it comes to inner city violence, people bring up the poverty. I go, how are you comparing your poverty to Haiti's poverty? What calculus are you doing? By Haiti's measures, the people in inner city Chicago who are shooting up the place, and there's all kinds of other reasons. But the poverty thing, don't tell me about the poverty thing. It's just not fair. The poverty in inner city Chicago is up here. The poverty in Haiti is below the church the floor. It's not about the money, clearly. It's about structures. It's about institutions. It's about the family. So maybe you got to look for it somewhere else. Turning off the TV would be a great help this Christmas. And you could do this. You could watch It's a Wonderful Life. And I'll end with that, because I saw it again last night for the 742nd time. He says, he tells the Clarence, it would be better I had not been born. And the guardian angel says, you shouldn't have said that. Joseph, let's let him look like what his life would be like had he not been born. Because he was near suicidal. And then he sees what his life was like when he wasn't here. And he has this incredible joy. I mean, if you don't cry watching that, come on. Father Simon makes fun of me all the time. If you don't cry watching, give me a call. There's something wrong with you. It's a very happy, sweet, bittersweet, great story. But at the end, he's on the bridge where the whole thing started. And what does he say? I want to live again. And I'm going to cry right now. I want to live again. I want to live. And he starts crying. God, give me the joy. Help me find it. Heal my sorrows, console my woundedness, and let me be a harbinger of peace and love and forgiveness unto other people. It's not Merry Christmas yet. Happy Advent. And just for the record, this is Rose. Thank you.